Good morning, Nigeria, and good morning from wherever in the world you're watching. This morning on Breakfast Central, we're going to be looking at some big stories, conversations about the high cost of living, topping the charts when we look at conversations around the country. We'll be delving deep into this and opening our phone line so you can chime in. I am Olive Emodi.
And I am Osaogi Ogbawa. Thank you very much for joining us. For those of you who are watching us here in Lagos, across Nigeria, and of course, those who are joining us on YouTube, we hope the next 2 hours we're able to bring you some of the biggest conversations happening here in Nigeria. Remember, at some point, the phone lines are open, so you can always be a part of the conversation. Share your thoughts with us, on any of the things that come up this morning. We also have Dashin Usman joining us with breakfast headlines. Good morning, Dashin.
Hi guys, good morning. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
We're doing very well.
I mean, that's a very valid question. I think that asking people, how are you, before, maybe in the last 1 year, it's different when you ask people, how are you today? Because it seems that there's just a certain sense of despair. The social media slang of you go touch everybody. It's really touching everybody now.
All right, so you sound really, really low, Olive. I can actually barely hear you. But I did hear when you said it sounds different when you ask someone, how are you, as compared to last year. There's a lot happening at the same time, and it's so overwhelming. Now, we have a list. Just choose, pick. Pick your onion. What is actually happening? Is it the economy? Is it the tanker drivers that were on strike? And is it the fact that dollar is over 1,800 naira? And I think Osagi actually did say this a while back. He talked about how dollar will soon reach 2,000 naira, and we're seeing that happening.
Yeah, and for me, it's unfortunate, that seems to be the thing that is even most triggering for a lot of Nigerians. It's part of one of the things I'm going to mention later. I don't know if you can hear me, Dashin, but it's one of the things that I would mention later, that, the exchange rate is currently the most triggering thing for Nigerians because it's affecting everyone. Unfortunately, when we even hear that, Nigerians have been murdered in Katsina or in Borno or in Plateau State or anywhere in Kaduna, we don't even get the same reaction anymore, to the loss of Nigerian lives in their dozens, compared to the reaction that we're getting for the exchange rate. And I fear that at some point we're also going to get used to the fact that the dollar is 3,000 naira.
I pray we don't get to that. I pray we don't get to that.
Well,
did you just say
and that's
3,000?
the problem. Yeah.
3?
Yeah, because the same way we initially would have said, there's no way dollar is going to hit 500 naira. There's no way we're going to hit 700. And then we hit 1,000. And now we're at 1,800. So I'm sure people a couple of months ago would have said, there's no way dollar's going to hit 2,000 naira. It's probably going to happen in the next couple of days.
I do know the funny thing.
So why not 3,000?
I actually saw a report yesterday blaming the opposition of, pushing forex scarcity. I don't even understand where that is actually coming from, because it doesn't seem or any policy that is actually on ground at the moment is working. I also saw a video of someone who was actually walking and fainted because he was hungry. He couldn't eat. They had to buy food for him nearby to eat. Nigerians seems to be the ones, at the receiving end. The masses seem to be the ones at the receiving end of everything happening.
And I'm hoping that the government sees this as dire as it is, because there's really no way to sugarcoat it. Things are really bad. Of the top of our priorities are to stabilize this dollar. People are even saying, you know what? Let's even go back to the 1,000 that we're at. Let it not fall further. Let it even stop falling, so we know where to catch our breath, because it's almost like everything is hitting us from different sides of the divide. And then insecurity is another conversation. Well, the good news, it would seem that the state policing has passed its second reading, which is going to be one of our top stories. We're going to share what the top stories this morning are, and right after that, we'll come to Dashin for breakfast headlines.
Yes, this morning, the APC blames opposition for high cost of living.
Well, very interesting perspective. And state police bill passes second reading at the House of Representatives. That's a part of the conversation we're looking at this morning.
Edo gubernatorial polls Philip Shaibu's chances ahead of PDP primaries. It's also something we'll be looking at.
And as we do every other day on the show, we are asking Which Way Nigeria, where we ask pertinent questions and hold the government accountable. And we certainly will bring in you the newspapers, looking at the front pages and having you calling to share your thoughts. All these on Breakfast Central. Now let's bring you breakfast headlines.
Hello and welcome to Breakfast Headlines. I'm Dashin Usman. Now we begin in West Africa, where the Senate has launched a comprehensive investigation into the utilization of the 30 trillion naira Central Bank of Nigeria loans during the tenure of former President Muhammadu Buhari, raising questions about financial transparency and accountability. This decision comes amid growing concerns over the alleged mismanagement of funds obtained from the CBN under the leadership of CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele, with accusations of reckless spending worsening the country's ongoing food and security crisis. Tanker drivers in Nigeria have been directed to resume operations following a crucial meeting involving key stakeholders and government officials after a 2-day withdrawal of service. Now, the decision to resume operations comes after discussions between the federal government, Nigerian Association of Road Transport Owners representatives, and other industry stakeholders addressing concerns over the high cost of diesel needed to fuel their trucks for transporting petroleum products across the nation. The federal government, through the Office of the Head of Civil Service of the Federation, has commenced moves to ensure that official government documents classified as sensitive are not leaked to the public. The Head of Civil Service of the Federation, Dr. Folashade Emiasong, in a memo uploaded on the website of the Office of the Head of Civil Service of the Federation, warned that any officer caught engaging in such unbecoming acts will be severely dealt with in line with the relevant provisions of the Public Service Rules and other extant circulars. The Nigerian police force has issued a stern warning against the unlawful production and utilization of police and security uniforms, emphasizing the potential risks posed to public safety. The Public Relations Officer of the Nigerian Police Force, ACP Olumuyiwa Adejobi, emphasized the grave consequences of misusing security uniforms, stressing that such actions could result in harm and distress for citizens while undermining the nation's security efforts. Now, still in West Africa, Guinea's ruling junta has taken drastic measures, freezing the accounts and seizing the passports of former government members following the sudden dissolution of the administration. Chief of Staff General Ibrahima Sori Bangura announced on state television that the junta has ordered the freezing of bank accounts, seizure of travel documents, and removal of official privileges from dissolved government officials who no longer or who have no clear explanation, with no clear explanation given for these actions. Suspected militants affiliated with the Islamic State group have yet again unleashed terror in a deadly attack in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, according to local reports, rebels believed to be from the Allied Democratic Forces launched a brazen assault on the town of Maimoya in Beni territory, leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. Also, South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has announced the date for the upcoming general elections as the nation gears up for a pivotal moment in its democratic history. Now, President Ramaphosa on Tuesday declared that South Africans will head to the polls on May 29 to elect a new parliament and ultimately choose their next leader. A prominent Egyptian opposition figure has been released from prison after serving a 6-month sentence, which effectively derailed his bid to contest the presidential election. Hisham Kasim, a publisher and opposition politician, returned home on Tuesday after completing his jail term. And that's all on Breakfast Headlines. I'm Darshan Usman. Now it's back to Olive and Osauge.
Thank you very much, Dashin. Very interesting stories there. Heartbreaking, of course, seeing the developments in Guinea, and of course, continuing to hope that things improve. But of course, back here in Nigeria, the second reading for the state police, I'm really just hoping that, we have a perfect understanding what we're, trying to achieve with it, because we can, make all these policies, and, do these things to maybe just get, a bit of a round of applause from Nigerians, but it's not coming with any level of sincerity of purpose. And remember, the state governments would also have to be able to fund the state police. There has to be those little details that must be checked out to know that we're ready for it. I've been of the opinion there's many other adjustments to the Nigerian Constitution that we maybe need to take a look at, and of course, if we continue to ignore those ones, these patches here and there would never really address the real issues that we have. But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it's certainly a step in the right direction, because I mean, we've been calling for this for the longest time, and it makes us feel like at least they're listening. A little better late than never, I would say, but
yeah.
We'll need to get into the details of what that entails and what that will mean. Thank you, Dashin.
Thank you so much. Well, the most important thing is getting it right. But thank you so much, Olive and Asage.
All right. We'll see you again at 9. Thanks for stopping by. To, of course, our viewers this morning, remember you can be a part of the conversation. If you have your views on state police or anything, that comes up during the show, remember you could always dial. And, of course, those numbers on your screen. Let us know, all right, what you think. Or tweet at us at News Central TV this morning. Let us know your thoughts on these stories and these conversations. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we continue this morning with Breakfast Central. Welcome once again. Now, in continuation of the political season in Edo State, residents are gearing up for the primaries of the People's Democratic Party scheduled for tomorrow, February 22nd, 2024. In Edo North, where the current Deputy Governor Philip Shaibu comes from, some residents are hoping he can consolidate on what Adams Oshiomole did when he was governor, while, of course, some just want a good performance, regardless of who emerges winner. Our correspondent, Bernard Akedes, of course, spent some time visiting Shaibu's hometown, Auchi in Edo State, and these are the thoughts and expectations of some residents over there.
More and more billboards of politicians and political parties across Edo State, a reminder that politics is in the air. Following the drama from the primaries of the All Progressives Congress, APC, all eyes are now on the opposition. But the opposition People's Democratic Party, PDP, also has had its fair share of political drama in recent times. Godwin Obaseki, the state governor, has not been on good terms with his deputy, Philip Shaibu, who is one of the candidates running for a shot at the primaries. Blessing, who resides in Jetu, where Shaibu comes from, believes the relationship between the governor and his deputy may not necessarily affect his chances at the primaries.
Nigeria election is what we can never predict. The same state today is what we call wait-and-see state, because the governor was what we call wait-and-see governor. So I believe he can still wake up tomorrow and change his mind, because they were not having issues before. It was just of recent they were not having a problem. Well, I learned that they said they've settled, but I don't know why the governor is now bringing it as well. So we don't know if he's trying to use that one to trick the APC candidates. At that minute, he will now bring in Philip Shaibu.
Shaibu hails from the same local government area as Adams Oshiomole, and the people are hoping that should Shaibu become the governor, he will be able to consolidate on what Oshiomole did for them.
To me, Philip Shaibu, let's say as he goes, because it was once Oshiomole's boy. So I believe if he became the governor of Edo State, to me, if I were to be him or as a person, he have to continue from where his mentor stopped, because his mentor did very well for Jetu. Like this road that we are standing now, Oshiomole was the one who did this road. It was just a one-way before, but today it's a dual carriageway. So I believe he has so many things to do because he's from this community.
However, there are those who are less interested in whoever wins the primaries and eventually becomes governor. The current economic crisis in the country is biting so hard, and they say all they want is a leader who has the interest of the people at heart.
In fact, people are not talking about the election again. We are talking about the condition of Nigeria in general. People are suffering. No food, no water, no electricity, nothing. We are just, every day by day, people are suffering, whichever way. Whether Labour Party or whether APC or whether, in fact, we are not talking about party again. We are talking of human being. So, whichever way, let them know how to solve problem of this country.
Shaibu now has to first cross the hurdle of winning the primaries come Thursday, but from all that has been happening, this may not be a stroll in the park. In Benin for News Central, I am Bernard Akede.
And I'm sure a lot of people would agree with one of the last persons that spoke in that clip. He says, for him, what's important right now is, is solving the extreme hunger, that of course is spread across Nigeria. The times that Nigerians are currently dealing with, it's really not the time to be even talking about elections or be having banter on elections. There's too much hunger, there's too much suffering, there's too much poverty, there's too many people who are dealing with the worst economic times Nigerians have ever experienced, arguably the worst times. And so, the conversations on elections, and it's not even talking about elections on people and that's maybe the most hurtful part, that you're not even having conversations, about elections on, with politicians that you trust will be able to fix the challenges that you're dealing with. The 2023 elections, we had pretty much the same conversations, and everybody, had the same banter, and the same argument. There was tribalism, there was, a lot of hatred. There was so much energy put into talking about elections that would, to a large extent, produce some of the same worst caliber of politicians and worst caliber of leaders for Nigerians. So all the energy that we put into discussing, who should win the primaries and who should get this ticket and where this person is from and, who's political godfather and who's the godson, all of that energy, is to discuss things that will eventually produce some of the worst caliber of leaders that we have, in the country and maybe even on the continent. And that really should be one of the things that hurts, the average Nigerian the most, or it should be a reminder to the average Nigerian, really, that we shouldn't continue to lose focus and, lose, the concept of what exactly is most important, which is fighting hunger and fixing our country. Some of these elections, to a large extent, will almost not. But anyway, moving on, Nigeria's Vice President Kashim Shettima has accused politicians who lost in the 2023 general election of plotting to throw Nigeria into anarchy, sabotaging the economy by smuggling food out to other countries to trigger food price hikes. During the conference on public wealth management in Abuja, the Vice President claimed 45 trucks smuggling food out to neighboring countries were intercepted by security forces. The Vice President emphasized that some political actors are hell-bent on plunging Nigeria into anarchy over their failure to grab power in the last elections.
Just 3 nights ago, 43 trucks of maize, 45, not even 43, were caught being transported to a neighboring country. Just in that Ilela axis, there are 32 illegal smuggling routes. And the moment those foodstuffs were intercepted, the price of maize fell by 10,000 naira. It came down from 60,000 to 50,000. And the Minister of Agriculture and Food Security is here. So there are forces that are hell-bent on undermining our nation. But this is the time for us to coalesce into a single force. Rally around our president, rally around our government, rally around each other. We have the resources, we have the intellect, we have the capacity to turn the corner. And Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking to you, not as the Vice President, I'm talking to you as a fellow Nigerian. I'm assuring you that we have crossed the Rubicon. We are on a path to improved economic performance. But let's unite. What binds us together surpasses whatever that divides us. Politics come and goes. The highest any president can say in office is 8 years. Whether we like it or not, we spend more years of our lives outside power than in power.
Well, the Vice President did not mention the names of the politicians he accused of plunging the country into further economic chaos and, of course, sabotaging President Bola Tinubu's government. But, of course, Atiku Abubakar of the PDP and, of course, Labour Party's Peter Obi, which were top contenders in the last presidential election, have, over time continued to castigate the president's handling of the economy. Now, over the past weeks, increments in prices of food have predated Tinubu's government. His sudden fuel subsidy removal on May 29, 2023, and floating of the naira have seen petrol price jump from 145 to 630 naira, shooting food prices up as the naira continued its free fall against the dollar, currently trading at about 1,825 naira against the dollar as of yesterday. Joining us this morning on Breakfast Central is Public Affairs Analyst Dr. Charles Oludare Marindoti. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Osarge. Good morning, everybody.
Yeah. The Vice President's statement, blaming disgruntled politicians, as they normally would call it, for what Nigerians are currently dealing with and the economic challenges that Nigeria currently is dealing with. Do you agree with him? Is there any sense to it? Or is this just another example of the government failing to take responsibility for where it's failing Nigerians?
Well, I would not dispute what he has said. I mean, I don't have the data and everything, but what I would say is that it's definitely bad optics when things are going bad and you seem to be blaming somebody else. But, and I think they are also getting it wrong from a strategic point of view. They caught 45 trucks smuggling food to neighboring market. Let's assume it's rice. I know he said it's maize. How many people would that feed in a day? So we are still missing the mark strategically. Like you mentioned, Osarage, rightly, food prices had been, exuberant even before the removal of the first subsidy and the floating of the Naira exchange rate, which definitely worsened it. So what do we think was, responsible for, the food prices being hitherto too expensive? It is what I call state capture. We have consolidated the Nigerian markets in the hands of a few suppliers and past government, policies that it does not encourage competition. Essentially, we have one company that controls 60% of the supply of our cement. We don't allow food importation, even though we know that we have not been making enough food. So, I am not surprised that these things are going on and people are smuggling. If people want, if these people that are smuggling think the market in any of our neighboring countries is stronger than that of Nigeria, then let them go. So far, you give them competition. You see, that is what I think they've failed to do. I can remember vividly when I was in secondary school and rice moved from 3,100 to 6,200 within about 2 weeks. I was shocked, and that was about the time I could recollect they announced something about restriction in that market. When President Tinubu removed first subsidy in May, 7 days later, I wrote an article on the Punch on how the president can cushion the effect of subsidy, and I said he should end food protectionism, because when you protect cost like a form of protectionism, what you are doing is essentially giving people ability to monopolize the market, and then they can charge whatever they want. What should be done by the government is to protect the consumers and support the producers, not the other way around. So that is what is aggravating this problem right now.
Dr. Marindoti, from where you sit or where you stand, do you see how bad things are? Do you agree that things are not in a very good, how bad or how good do you think things are?
Things are very bad right now, for real. That we have to be candid with ourselves. We cannot lie about or try to talk away the reality of things. Like, if you, as a doctor, if I see someone who has HIV, I just have to tell them there's no way to sugarcoat it. Things are bad right now. But this bad thing is just a reflection of the state of the Nigerian nation, essentially.
Okay. So now that there's a collective agreement that things are really bad, I remember we've had you on the show several times and you've spoken very strongly in support of the current administration. So who would you allude the responsibility of how things have gotten really bad to? Whose responsibility is it? Do you still think that this current administration has what it takes to get us out of this mess?
Yes, it is the attempt to fix the problem that has brought to the Nigerians the reality of the problem. The responsibility is on the history of Nigerian governance and on all of us. Let's take the exchange rate, for example. The exchange rate is down right now because that is the real true value of it. It is essentially a mirror being placed in front of us. It is because all of us have been largely unproductive. Definitely, the government has a lot of role to play in Nigerians being productive.
If I hear you correctly, you are making this more about the Nigerian people and less about the government. And at the start of this conversation, you had said that it was important that, for us not to take away the blame from where the blame should be. But if I hear you correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems that you're making this about the Nigerian people and less about the government.
No, I am not making this about the Nigerian people or less about the government. I am saying it is a reflection of the state of the fact that we are not productive. We are not earning foreign exchange. So by not earning foreign exchange, we don't have what it takes to, defend the naira. The president cannot, earn foreign reserve. Is just going to be the one that leads the process of us earning this foreign reserve that we can use to defend our currency and we can use to improve our productivity, our GDP, and make all our lives better. So definitely, it is not like there's no blame on the people. We don't have constant power supply. That is affecting our productivity. The government has a responsibility in that. But this current state right now, in terms of like the way things are, the only way out of a problem is through that problem. It is an attempt when you are trying to fix something, you go through all these, bad things. But what I am worried about is the hunger, because if hunger is painful, a hungry man is an angry man. And as a doctor, I know this. If I want to cut something out of a patient, even if it is cancer, if I don't control the pain, that patient will not let me complete my procedure. So that is why I am against the tweet that the president put out, I think sometime late last week, where he said he's against food importation. There is no food in the land. Yes, you have earmarked acres of land and tractors and irrigation and everything, but that will not grow food today or tomorrow. And people need to eat today and tomorrow and every time in between now and when the food will grow. So you have to end food, regulation. You cannot deregulate forex and fuel, which is most likely going to elevate price, and fail to deregulate essential commodities, cement, food, and everything. Take a look at what was in the news yesterday. We have just like 3 companies that controls the old cement market in Nigeria, and they said they are going to bring down price from 15,000 to 7,000 to 8,000. Are they telling us that they are just so generous that they are deciding to throw away their business? Because if you are going to sell your product at 50% of the price, your business is not supposed to be viable. This is a sign that the Nigerian consumer has been exploited for far too long due to government policies that
so you are coming back to my question then.
This administration.
So that means you've come back to the initial part of my question, which is that yes, you've mentioned that we're not as productive as we should be. We're not exporting. We don't. FX has really put us in a very complicated situation. But it is the government, the federal government, that has the responsibility of steering the nation in the direction this direction that you're talking about. So at the end of the day, you agree that the blame is in the hands of the federal government.
And the state government too.
So the government, yes. So the government. The government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and all the other state governors are responsible for where we are.
Yes, they are, because let me like I was going to say, if all the states in Nigeria are doing just 10% of what Lagos State is doing in terms of foreign investment, we will not be in this FX state right now. So it has to be, we cannot just, the president has taken responsibility of a problem that predated him. Imagine, you can now understand the reason why Emefiele has failed to pay a lot of bills for 8 years, which is part of the reason why we are still in this hole right now. So we are going to have to get out of this hole. We are going to have to clear all our delinquencies. So the administration needs to let the Nigerian people know. And also, I am going to be factual. There has been a bit of profligacy, paying for Hajj and everything. That is not a sign of a nation in distress. When the Koreans after the war had this problem, they were candid with their people, and the people banded together. They went on a journey of industrialization and production and export-based businesses so that they can generate foreign reserves to pay their IMF debts. In 1997, when they had the Korean financial crisis, the families donated their gold to be melted for foreign reserve. But this is because the government also showed a lot of diligence, and they were forthright with their people, and the people also were supportive. They came together, and that is the only way Nigeria face this problem in unison.
Right.
When you see that your neighbor, your brothers are hungry, and you
Dr.
are
Maringotti.
exporting food out of the country, that is wrong.
Yeah. So, from what you've described, it sounds like you're a little disappointed with the way that they have, governed in the last 9 months.
No, I am not disappointed in the way they have managed both the FX, which are the big ones, the FX and the fuel subsidy thing that needed to go. Even the fuel subsidy we heard has not been gone. I would say end subsidy at the ports and put subsidy at the pump for people who are transporting food and people in large numbers. Those are things that can help cushion the effect of subsidy removal. But I am disappointed with the way they have managed this food crisis, because food is essential. You have to let people eat. You can't tell people to go and extricate themselves when they are hungry. If you have a son and he says he's hungry, you won't say, wait for the yam that I will plant next week in our backyard to grow before you eat. You go and buy food for him anywhere.
What I'm asking is because, I mean, we can focus on the food crisis, but, there's still an economic crisis that we're dealing with. It's not just food. Food definitely is, extremely important to the average Nigerian, but it's not just food. It's an insanely chaotic economy that Nigerians are currently dealing with, and it's majorly because of the policies that they put in place. When they came into office. The president's making the statement of subsidy is gone. Without necessarily having a plan for how to manage the effects of subsidy being yanked off just like that. They have also, of course, not been very honest with the removal of subsidy, because you and I know that there's still some subsidy being paid. The current price of petrol is not what it should be if subsidy is truly gone. And so there's an obvious lie from the federal government there. And of course, the mismanagement of the after effects of their policies. And so when you see that, and then you see the vice president saying that it is, disgruntled politicians that are to blame, does that sound like a government that knows what it's doing or knows what is necessary to fix these issues?
The messaging I will fault, I did yesterday that I don't give the messaging, I give it the messaging an F, because definitely, I mean, if subsidy might still be there for the price to be as low as it is based on the calculation, we can be forthright with the people. We need to get the subsidy out fully. But here's the problem. There's going to be a political crisis in the country if the fuel price goes up. And also, in terms of the sincerity of all the players, when subsidy got removed, the state governments got extra funds. What did they do with that? How many of them do we see actually giving out any of these palliatives? President's media team needed to have focused attention on them too.
Palliatives is not, I mean, even the palliatives conversation is something that I'm not sure you're even proud of. I'm sure that you don't live in Nigeria, but if you were in Nigeria or from wherever you are that you're seeing these things happen, I'm not even sure you're proud of it. So it's not really about, analyzing or, focusing on whether the policies were properly shared. I mean, we're talking about giving tiny bags of rice and onions and water and oil to Nigerians. Come on, Dr. Marindotti. So it's not even a conversation that you're happy to even discuss or you're proud of. What I'm asking is the steps that they've taken so far, does it show that they have an understanding of what we're currently dealing with and what must be done? And do we currently, from your perspective, can we speak with President President Bola Tinubu today, and he would give you a perfect analysis of what is wrong and what needs to be done and, to fix these issues?
Yes, definitely. I believe President Bola Tinubu is doing the right thing as regards everything else other than this food, that unavailability right now. And I hope they respond real soon, because there has to be food for everybody. That is an emergency. But however, you can see the way they are managing the forex. They made the law about the International Money Transfer Organization. Within about 1 week, they had about 1 billion inflow and all those things. These things have to snowball over time to get people out of it. Definitely the cushioning effect. Like when I wrote my article on June 6, 2023, that they should end food protectionism so that the prices can come down to counterbalance whatever will be the rise as a result of the policies. I was anticipating when I was talking about taking away subsidy from the ports, from the seaport, and putting it at the fuel pump for people who are shipping food. Those are more targeted, interventions that can help the problem on the long run. When you talk about, giving people who are going to be transporting large number of people subsidies so that they don't increase their transport fare, those are more targeted that has to be managed at the state level, that the federal government definitely can give them the funds to support it, but has to be managed at those levels. But we have a situation whereby, I mean, it was even very disgusting to me when I heard the PDP Governors Forum saying something about this, as if they are not also, partakers or stakeholders in this thing. They all have a responsibility. It is not just the president, it is all of them. If had they managed the affairs of their states better, Nigeria also will not be in this state. That is why the president keeps calling them to his office to tell them to do well for his people. The president had to announce that fuel subsidy removal because it is just the rule of a hole. When you are in a hole, you stop digging. If we continue paying subsidy, that means we are still digging ourselves.
Yeah, but we're still paying subsidy. That's the problem here. We're still paying subsidy.
Yes, so if it still has to go, that's what I'm trying to say. They need to take it out. If they have not been able to take it out because they are afraid of the political backlash. I mean, think about it. The fuel is still just 600 right now. See how expensive things are. So it might be a balancing act on their part that, okay, let us stabilize the FX first or whatever before we take it out. But I say, you have to find a way to yank it out, but you must have put in the specifics of how you want the intervention to go. These things could have been started.
So if you've been following the government, in the last, couple of months, and of course with the moves that they've made, you're saying that this is just a temporary thing. How long do you think this temporary period would be? Is it a 1 year? Is it 2 years? And is there anybody that you can quote? Maybe the CBN governor, the president himself, the vice president, the Minister for Finance. Is there anybody that you can quote that has given or shared with you a perfect picture of what they are currently doing to ensure that the dollar doesn't hit 2,500 naira and even beyond? Is there anything that has shown you that these guys know what they're doing, and in the next couple of months, Nigeria's economy will improve? Things will get better in the agricultural sector. Share with me, please.
Yes, I believe like what the current CBN governor has been doing with the monetary policies is very, very essential. They have to decide some things as they go, but when you are fighting corruption and malfeasance, it always fights back. So they have to definitely. That's why I'm worried about the food, because they need time for things to normalize. In economists will tell you that there's no provable certainty. It's only calculated risks, probabilistic risks. So in my own opinion, definitely economics is not perfect science. I think by the end of the year, which has always been the projection of a lot of economists, but they have to stay, continue with these new policies, because the markets are looking, the foreign direct investors, the foreign portfolio investors, even Nigerians in diaspora that might want to invest, they are looking at the state of the country. They want to ensure that the government is keeping a steady hand, and they are not going to reverse their policies, because that would be worse than
what policies
else. So
now?
I believe, the policy of doing this managed float of the naira, trying to let Nigerians feel the real value of the currency. And please, I want Nigerian government to understand this. Our problem is not importation. Our problem is exportation. Nigeria is the only country in the world that we have this Nigerian deflection syndrome, where your son can fail to go to school, fail a class, and you still blame his mother, your mother-in-law, instead of telling him to go to school. Our problem is exportation. So we need to start getting Nigerians to be productive, how to add values to the things.
Yeah, but
who get Nigerians
more aspects of it?
Who is the we?
Exactly.
Who is the we that needs to get? And once again, I'm still asking for the policies, from the president, from the vice president, like something that any of them has said that was really brilliant and you believed in, and you said, this is the right way to go. And, if we would just hold on, things will get better. Is there anything you can share? Because you've spoken vaguely about the CBN's policies.
It's not the policies that I've been following, from afar. This whole this monetary policy thing, managing the float, it is very essential, because people, we also need to pay our delinquencies. Definitely, people will not want to put their money in your hand when they know you have a lot of delinquencies. All these things that the CBN governor has been saying, the numbers that they said they paid and all those things, trying to get away the rot, trying to get back the money, fighting corruption. all those things are policies that will yield, fruit in the future. The health minister also, the policy he came out with, the health agreement. But a lot of these things, it is a collective. Nigeria is not going to be fixed just by the people in power. It has to be fixed by all of us.
But do the people in power actually give the impression that they're willing to actually fix Nigeria? And I take, for example, the president. In recent times, there have been public outcry by Nigerians about the difficulty that they're experiencing. It's never, since I remember, I don't think it's been this sad. People are looking for what to eat. People don't have food to eat. Have you even heard the president address the people of Nigeria to say that he can understand and empathize with the people of Nigeria and then share with us concrete plans to get us out of this situation? We've heard his son speak. We've heard his daughter speak. Vice President has spoken. Have you heard the president speak and clearly lay out plans beyond giving us motivational speech of things will get better? That sounds like motivational speech. Giving us clear, laid out plans on how he's going to get us out of this.
Well, I have a bit of privileged information that they're definitely in meetings day by day, but I would also want to still add to it. There was a time when there was food shortage, and I know this is because this is us facing reality for the very first time in the history of Nigeria. We've always, even when they said 1 naira was equal to $1, even the Emir of Kano, former Emir of Kano, said it that back then it was $1 to 4 naira. So but what I'm trying to say is that in 2022, when there was a food scarcity in America, Joe Biden flew in infant formula that was scarce at the time from all over the world. The president needs to announce that okay, we are letting food in. They already said they were going to open the borders for cement to come in because some people are gouging the prices of cement. These are things that they need to come out and say and not tell us.
Yeah, but these are your suggestions. These are your suggestions. These are your ideas.
These are yes, most of them are my ideas.
Yeah, but what we're asking is for us, for Nigerians, right, who are living and experiencing the current economic reality. You're in the United States. So for Nigerians now, they're not listening, they don't want to hear your ideas. They want to hear the ideas of the people that are in office, the president, vice president, and people that he's had as minister. So this is maybe the third time. Is there any idea that they've shared that maybe, you can share with us that has, given you confidence that, these guys know what they're doing. And in the next 1 year or 2 years, things would be a whole lot better, because this is 9 months into it, right? And it's not like we've had President Bola Tinubu, we'll have a media chat with anybody. He didn't, during the elections.
Well, he did in Chatham House, but he did a lot of delegations.
Exactly. So again, what is the thing that is giving you confidence? And we're not talking about your own ideas now. What's the thing that they have done or said that is giving you the confidence that they understand what they're doing?
Particularly the president.
Particularly the president, every single step that has been taken by the economic team that I have been following are the things that I have already, that were my own perspective, my own belief. So the fact that they are following through with this, the regulation of the forex, especially the petrol, those ones are two cash cows that we need to shed, trying to pay off our, the president definitely needs to come out and, give clear plans that Nigerians can be.
So the summary is that there's
also,
nothing, because you've said repeatedly that this is what they need to do, this is what they need to do, and the question has been, what have they said? What have they told? What have they, what's the thing that they've in any way been able to inspire Nigerians with, but you always go back to what they need to do. So we're going to assume from this conversation that there's nothing. There's nothing that they have said to you. There's nothing that you've heard from their, policies. There's nothing that the vice president has said that has given you the idea that, these guys know what they're doing, and maybe in 8 months or in 1 year, everything would be fine. Because every single day that passes, the dollar continues to, of course, appreciate. The naira continues to lose value. So there's nothing that they've told you that has said, we're going to increase production. We're going to attract, foreign exchange.
No, they are going to attract foreign exchange based on these policies that they have made, but they just have to stay it. They just have to continue at it. I don't have access to the people in power. Definitely, that is why I am on TV sharing my own ideas on how to manage, the pain of
nothing.
hunger, so that the policies. If they had said anything, I'm pretty sure Sarah, you would know about it even before me. I watched YouTube just to get my news about Nigeria. So but I know that by these policies that they have made, the promises that they've gotten from all these companies and everything, it will have to start to bear fruit. Production is a long journey. There is no shortcut out of the economic crisis that we are in.
Yeah,
it is
I agree with that.
all of us have to be. We have to train each other. We have to train our people, our youth, IT, everything. So, but the people have to come out and rally the people, corral their forces.
Well, the only coming out people are doing right now, Dr. Marindotti, unfortunately, the only coming out we're seeing in many cases is pockets of protest spreading across the country from disgruntled, hungry, and angry Nigerians. And we're hoping that we can hear something from the president ASAP, as soon as yesterday, something that gives us a clear plan of how the government is going to get us out of here and how soon we should expect to see these changes. But until then, we will keep having the conversations and asking the questions that matter.
I also want to mention that it is very essential that they announce the new minimum wage. It will change the conversation. It will keep the people, even if it is.
That's another conversation for another day. It's not about announcing figures. It's how to be able to sustain that. But we would invite you on another day to talk about that. Dr. Marindotti, thank you. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
And as is our custom here on Breakfast Central, every other day we ask the questions that matter, holding our leaders to account. And we're going to be doing that again this morning on Which Way Nigeria.
Now, every other day in the news, we hear a new story of Nigerians getting killed in parts of the country. There's different figures. No names, obviously, but just figures. Because that's what, Nigerians have seemingly been reduced to, just statistics. And at this point, it's also fair to say that we maybe have all become desensitized to these stories. Doesn't mean anything anymore, hearing that maybe 20 Nigerians were murdered the night before. If you check the news this morning, you might see one or two of such stories. It's actually no different from hearing a story about farming in Senegal or somewhere. There's complete, irrelevance, with these stories these days. In fact, stories of our current exchange rate ignites more conversations across the country than the tale of more Nigerians getting slaughtered. This morning I'm asking, how many more? And also, who is next? Now, one of the major reasons we've gotten so desensitized about this is years and years and years of complete lack of accountability from our government. We experienced years and years of a government that failed to accept its responsibility to protect Nigerian lives. A government that went on to name a group of people. They did a small naming ceremony, if we can call it that, for a group of people who were slaughtering Nigerian citizens. And we called them unknown gunmen. That means that the government, while failing to tackle this problem and also not being bothered with the proper investigation and justice for these victims, went on to tell us that these killers were unknown. And that's it. They're just simply unknown men with guns. And if in moments when they are not unknown gunmen, then they're just simply bandits. There was nothing, there was no part of, the whole conversation that the government said to itself, it is my responsibility to ensure that these people are identified and the victims get justice and we put an end to it. And once again, I'm asking, how many more lives and who's next? This morning, I want to ask the Nigerian government, and at what point will you say enough is enough? At what point will enough really and truly be enough for you in office? At what point will our government say, we have truly had enough of Nigerians dying in the hands of these terrorists, and we will put an end to it immediately? How many more need to be killed? How many more lives need to be taken before our government really takes that step and makes that statement to itself with honesty? How many more? And again, in any part of the country we ask, who is next? Now, one of the main reasons that we may never see that happen is because, and I said this a couple of days ago, there is no punishment for failure in our country. Nobody fears that they would lose their job for failing the Nigerian people. Nobody is bothered that they will be fired or forced to resign for failing to protect the Nigerian people. Not the president, not governors, not members of the National Assembly, not heads of our security agencies. Absolutely nobody has that fear or feels that level of responsibility or accountability or the fear of punishment for failing at their jobs, even if that failure has led to the loss of thousands of innocent lives. I mean, what kind of country are we really living in? Again, how many more lives and who is next? To those in the National Assembly, the people that you claim to be representing are being slaughtered in their dozens. The people who got you into office, into the National Assembly, are being murdered while you do and say absolutely nothing. And so how many more dead bodies do you want to represent in the National Assembly? To state governors and to Mr. President, the people that you are chief security officer of, those whose votes got you into government, and of course got you into government house, they're being killed by terrorists. And so after campaigning and fighting to get into those positions, do you really feel absolutely nothing for these families who have lost their fathers and mothers and siblings? And as always, is that the plan? To fail the Nigerian people for 4, maybe 8 years, and then just go and enjoy retirement? To preside over a nation that is flowing with the blood of hundreds of innocent people, and then after 4 years or 8 years, you just disappear, and that's it, and enjoy your life happily ever after, as the ones in the past have done? Again, this morning I'm asking how many more and who is next? Good morning, Nigerians.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Now, as part of our duty to keep you updated with the biggest stories across the country, we'll be reviewing the front pages of the newspapers and we'll be affording you the opportunity to join in via phone. The numbers to call will be showing on your TV screen. Now, joining us to analyze the big stories today is public affairs analyst Olusegun Okwade. Good morning. It's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, good morning, Olive, and welcome back on the show.
It's like they're going to be welcoming back all through the week. I haven't quite settled in yet.
I'm trying to settle in now because we are back to reality now.
Honestly, the reality is a bit scary and shocking. Let's see what the reality says this morning on the front page of the newspaper. I'll be starting off with this Nigeria newspaper. The front page says, federal government uncovers 32 illegal routes for smuggling food to neighboring countries, which is, of course, a statement made by the Vice President, Kashim Shettima. In the process, he also blamed the opposition party for trying to sabotage this government. Senators seek probe of 30 trillion naira ways and means advances under Buhari. Ex-Senate President Lawan, probe won't serve any useful purpose, says 9th Senate only approved 22 trillion naira. Again, bandits kill 6 in Katsina, injure 10, set ablaze 3 houses. Ohaneze, IPOB warn against hardship protests in Southeast. Nigeria, Ghana economies to experience slowest growth in West Africa in 2024, according to AFDB. Let's start with federal government uncovering 32 illegal routes for smuggling food to neighboring countries. And in his speech, he did say that when they found these trucks that were smuggling food out of Nigeria, it reduced, I think it was maize, that was the last one they uncovered, and he reduced the cost of selling maize by 10,000 naira. So it dropped from 60,000 naira to 50,000 naira. So is this really like something to be very excited about? Because, he was sharing it as such great news.
Yeah, Olive, I want to say this. Congratulations to them, but we are not bothered. We are not moved. And it's not a news to celebrate. This illegal route you're looking at must have been there years. It's not just starting today that we have scarcity. But most of the time, we just look for a little loophole. I'm sure you read in that the extension of Shettima's statement was to be blaming it on the opposition party. So most of the time, we leave what we are supposed to do and attribute the failure on the other one that is not doing, that is not even saying or uttering anything. If you are doing what you're supposed to do, this illegal stuff that you are coming to say you are curtailing or you are saying would not be something you should be discussing, because you would have made sure, if people won't want to go that illegal route, because they know an opportunity to do that or ways to do that, you'll be facing some certain punishment. So why are you going there to be saying that you caught them? Caught them because that thing has been a normal thing they've been doing. If the food supply has been steady, the way we've been having it in time past, nobody will look in that direction. We are looking at food. Of you saying that you are blocking, what are you doing about those that are illegally, diverting our crude oil? Has anything been done to that? What have we done about people that are illegally, mismanaging our foreign exchange? We are not talking about that, but we are talking about illegal routes of which they are actually moving some of this to neighboring country. I know years back, that people were moving our finished product, petroleum product, to other neighboring country. The last administration, when they hiked the price, we all saw it in the public domain, that those people were actually finding that it's affecting their economy. And were those things done legally? The answer is no. So this that they are saying, as far as I'm concerned, is personal. It's no news. That is reducing it is something people have been doing. They are still doing it, and they will continue to do it because you are saying that you're picking that. How many, from the news, how many people name was mentioned perpetrating this ill? We don't mention names. All we need to do is we are taking the food and we are going to be sharing or we are going to block it. But some people are actually perpetrating this ill. Bring their names out and let's punish them.
And it may not even be like the actual people that were caught. It might be bigger names that are behind all of this.
It might be. That's what happened. Those are the foot soldiers. The people masterminding because when you look at the cost of doing some of this business, it's not issue of 200,000 or 50,000 or 500,000. These are huge investment that runs into millions of naira. So you have people behind the scene who are actually financing and funding it. So for me, it's no news that you're saying that illegal area where foods are being made. What we want is that those that are supposed to man some of this area, are they doing the things they are supposed to do? If they are doing it, the people will not be encouraged to say they want to divert those things to the area.
There's also
names.
There's also the possibility that it's also a lie. I'm saying so because it's easy to just look out for new things to blame as the reason for food issues that we have in the country. It's possible it's just a lie. And if you say that these illegal routes have always been in existence, then it didn't start last week. It has always been there, we've always had pretty much the same level of food supply. So nothing changed between the last 2 months and today.
So that's why I said for me, it's just looking for a way to divert our attention to other things or to applaud them. Like you asked me, am I excited with the information? See, a lot of illegal way of doing things exist in this country because those that are saddled with the responsibility of actually dealing with what I expect to be hearing, if indeed it's illegal, is to mention names of those that are behind the act and how we are going to prosecute them to make sure that they don't go that area. So these things are things that you just say, now, VP don't talk. Let's everybody go to their shell. Let's give them a month and let them do it. And they will go back to the business. This is what practically
This is from a government that cannot boldly detail how much investment it has placed on agriculture. If you want to see food produce, then the Nigerian government should be able to pitch it and say, okay, in the last couple of years, this is what we invested in agriculture. This is where we moved agriculture from, and this is where we are today.
Even with
but
oil.
They can't really say that.
It's food that we are mentioning. Oil is there. Our foreign exchange is there.
Can we categorically say that we don't know, can the government boldly say that they don't know the people who are responsible for
the oil theft?
Exactly, oil theft. Taking the oil out of our borders. Can they really clearly say that?
That business is not for small boys. The oil theft you're talking about is not for the small boys. We've heard it from the administration of Obasanjo, Jonathan.
About them being cabals.
It's always been one cabal, certain set of people illegally mining, diverting the oil. and we have not named just one person.
And I think this naturally even segues into the big story that was on the front page of this Nigerian newspaper, where they said that the Senate has said that they now want to probe the 30 trillion naira ways and means by the President Muhammadu Buhari's government. So yeah, that's the big story there. It says Senate seeks probe of 30 trillion ways and means advances under Buhari.
And then right after that, it's a good thing that you can see the rider.
Yes, ex-Senate President Lawan. The probe would serve
that's an
any
area that we need not to discuss it, because even the person you want to probe is already responded that you need not to probe.
That they only approved 22.
So 22 out of 30.
So
we are talking about
8 trillion.
8, when you look at it, as far as I'm concerned, you see, we most of the time chase shadows. Most of the people that are actually perpetrating these ills, we know them. But because there's always interrelation in what they do, you cannot mention names. I ask, is it the duty of the people that are assigned with the responsibility of having an oversight function on the executive that should be probing, or we have the anti-graft agency that are there to scrutinize things? Where is the Accountant General Office that disburses? Where is the Auditor General Office that is there to make sure that some of the spendings are actually being checked daily? But we are giving it. I don't want a situation we start going back to Olive off the mic. When you start talking, it's another drama. Senate should look at how can we curb this menace in such a way that during our own, because a lot of the people that are actually in the 10th assembly were in the 9th assembly. Exactly. So why is it that we are not talking? We should be having situations where we will say that after our own administration, we don't want the incoming administration, whether this or the next one, to address us that these are things that has actually been done during our own administration, not proving that. Leave it. Give a marching order to the anti-graft agency with every evidence that you have. Let them do their job. That's why they are there. Let them give us laws, rules, oversight function of some of the things they are doing. If you look at one of the headers this morning, is talking about the CBN looking at $10 billion to eject to do those things. Those are the ways and means that happened during the last thing. We are borrowing to fund certain set of things, and that's what we are probing. So this current one, we are already borrowing again, that the next administration will come. This is distraction as far as I'm concerned. Let's just be intentional. I am looking at a day when we'll start mentioning names and prosecuting them. That is when we'll put a stop to some of this. Otherwise, it's business as usual. The next administration will come and start blaming the previous one or some of the failures, knowing fully well that the people that move from 8 move to the 9th assembly, to the 10th assembly, and more than 50% of them will come to the 11th assembly.
Yeah, all right. Let's move to another newspaper. Just to remind viewers this morning, the phones are available. You could join us. Let's know your thoughts on these issues, all right, from the exchange rate to the, of course, the supply of fuel across the country, the agricultural sector, 30 trillion naira ways and means, and every other thing that comes up in the news. Let's now move to the Daily Trust, I believe, newspapers. Okay, the first newspapers this morning, it says here, Senate to probe Buhari's 30 trillion naira ways and means spending, to also investigate 10 trillion naira expended on anchor borrower scheme. Interesting. 2.4 billion dollars forex transaction by immediate past administration, as federal government vows to audit 22 trillion naira ways and means. It's always very, very fascinating, that these things always get, exposed right after the administration is over. A new government comes into office. They do this dance, with the EFCC and with the newspapers, but eventually always just leads to nothing, And I don't know that the former president will be, called to question and answer some of these, for some of the questions that are being raised here with the seeming wastage of Nigeria's wealth.
Are you aware that the last administration, their first 4 years was actually to be probing Jonathan's?
Yeah.
So that's
how many people were actually named? How many people? Majority of the people that were even mentioned, governors that we saw EFCC was working this and that. A lot of them are in the political space again, doing what is there. Yeah. So for me, when you say probe, we don't want the drama, because each probe brings that drama. It's from the drama we had off the mic. It's from the drama we saw the collapse of the head of a
NDDC.
particular agency. And a lot of things will actually come on board. So for us, can we close the gap in such a way that we will not give room for anybody probing anyone? You just know that the system is intact.
That's exactly
in
what
such a way that you cannot penetrate that act, so that we'll save the cost. Because when you sit down to start probe, that on its own, where you start getting allowance for sitting down to probe what is not probable, that will not get an actual, response or prosecution on some of the people that have actually. I heard, was it yesterday? I read in the dailies where the Senate president is saying that they are still looking for something that they will use to prosecute the former CBN governor.
I saw that.
You saw that. So I'm like,
yes.
so
They're not sure what to charge him with.
What they charge him with, so as we speak, with all the things we read in the papers every day. So it's becoming confusing that, are you sure what we are reading is what is happening? Or a different thing is happening? Because if at this point we have said last administration mismanaged, they did a lot of things, and the number 3 citizen of the country is saying we are looking for something to charge the immediate past CBN governor. That means I don't know how to explain that. So we'll still see the next administration come on board to say probe is the way to go. Let's probe the last administration, but put in a system that will not be talking of probing, but the system will check the activities of those that are out there to perpetrate the ill. Well, Trump would have made mess of US, but the system actually checked him.
It's popularly, I think it's been said, a couple of times, that the previous administration did the most damage to Nigeria's institutions, and so right
because
now
the rule was there, the system was not there to checkmate the activity.
Unfortunately.
And what give you the impression that the current one, we always hear that the last administration, performed worse than the previous one. Buhari,
so the new one
what are we going to say about this current administration when we'll be comparing him with Buhari?
We'll survive it first to compare. We'll raise $10 billion to stabilize Naira and books FX liquidity, says President Tinubu. We'll have you quickly speak on that also. APC Council's Edo Primary announces date for fresh poll. Petrol tanker drivers suspend nationwide strike, and also federal government set to release 60,000 metric tons of food grains to stabilize prices. These are the ones on the first news. Mr. Kwande, please pick any of them.
Well, on the issue of this ejecting funds to stabilize our currency, some of us have said, is that actually the way to go? We are empowering other nations by getting their product, using their currency to actually buy what we want. Can we domesticate some of the things we have? We have raw materials here that is actually being pushed out for them to process and bring back to us. And we start paying dollars, putting some of those pressure on our foreign exchange. Can we start looking internally what some of the things we can do? For me, I keep saying that the way and manner we've handled the subsidy funds is still disheartening, by saying that we are increasing allocation to the state government. I was thinking that you can use that fund to actually attack where you have removed it from. And what are we saying? Look at how we can fix our refinery in such a way that we will reduce the pressure of bringing some of these products into the country, and we can have other means of doing those things. So as we speak, the petrol tankers that call off the strike are not complaining about the cost of that PMX they are moving, but what their own inputs as raw material, which is the diesel, is what they are complaining about. Right. That they are buying diesel at 1.280, 1.3, and it's really impacting on their diesel. So I feel that government should be intentional. Let's look at way to domesticate some of the things we have, rather than relying solely on most of the importation of the things that we make use of. It has gotten bad to the extent that the foods that you and I grew up not being produced in the country are now being imported into our nation. So what are you going to use? The way our means that, or the money you will raise, you will now use that to bring in more of those products, encourage production. Because what those Asian countries are doing, do you know what they do, guys? I talked to some of them. They give their people target and saying, we have the market. Go out, we'll pay you overtime to make sure we meet the demand that is going to that country called Nigeria. Why can't we look at a way to mobilize our own, create employment? Every day we keep having increase in unemployment rate, and some people are actually creating employment for their own people, and we are looking for ways and means, looking for funds to inject, to bring in those products. I think for me, we are not just getting it right. We should look for a way to see how to fix first insecurity. I read yesterday and I was laughing that the president approved the payment of what the State House of Assembly is owing a disco.
Oh, yes.
How did we get there?
They were threatening to shut down, some of
Do you need to threaten the State House? Is that leadership by example when you are supposed to be making your payment on monthly basis?
As a matter of fact, that's one of the stories on the Vanguard newspaper.
Yeah, it's on the first news also, I think.
Yeah, so let's move over to the next newspaper and see how many more stories we can chip in. And this morning, we're looking at, I believe, the Vanguard newspaper. And on the front page, okay, let's look at Daily Trust. On the front page, see the big story there. Despite federal government's clampdown, dollar hits 1,900 naira and pound hits 2,250 naira. I hate to say I said it, but I did say it on one of my, at the time, I would never have imagined it would get to 2,000. But with the way the dollar has been falling, Osalge did predict today that if we're not careful, it will get to 3,000. BDCs raided, operators arrested, trial and error not solution, according to an economist. Partners to address volatility, operators tell government. Nasima wants dollar pegged at 850. At this point, Nigerians will give anything for the dollar to go below 1,000 naira. That is if it's ever possible. Federal Government National Assembly probe Buhari's 22.7 trillion naira ways and means loan. At the top of the paper, reps pass state police bill for second reading, and that's one I'd like you to react to as well. Customs subsidies, distribute seized food items. Bandits kill 7, injure baby, raise property in Katsina. Look at how sad it is that before now, we're already complaining that Nigerians are becoming in a way desensitized to the killings because it feels like every other day there's a new story. While you're crying over A, the next day you're hearing that they've kidnapped B. I don't know if you heard yesterday that they kidnapped a corpse and family members and they were asking for 50 million naira ransom. So now, not only are they kidnapping people alive, they are kidnapping dead bodies. Just like Fela said, double wahala for dead body. So now, this story is here, but I promise you that people are not even paying as much attention to the insecurity challenges that we're facing because there is hunger in the land. Look at dollar hits 1,900 naira to the pound, hits 1,900 naira, and pound 2,250 naira. Does this government even have a way out of this? Does it not feel like it's trial and error that they're doing? One day they are floating the naira, they say, oh, it's not working, okay, let's inject $500 million into the economy, let's clear the backlog of debt. Does this government behave like a government that feels that they know a way to help us stabilize this? Yeah. Or it's still the after effect of the floating of the naira?
Yeah, Olive, I would say this, that the two policies declared by the president May 29 seems to be more of ego than reality, in the sense that for fuel subsidy, it's like, what is this in this thing that this previous administration, without actually studying the reason for it. Now we've been able to have so much in terms of subsidy removal, but it's been, as far as I'm concerned, misappropriated or misdiverted. So the very few that you're saying, they've been saying subsidy is about Kaba. So the funds that you've generated, what have you done? It's still the very few that are enjoying that too, because the citizens are feeling the pain and we are not seeing the reason for that removal. And that's why we're saying that you just came and you'll feel like, no, this shouldn't be a problem. Subsidy is gone because they said it's not part of the speech. But you just feel that this is it. Unification of the currency has not in any way worked. Areas where we have said we can make things to improve is first, make sure that things are actually working well in the country. And the area you must first concentrate on is security. So that you and I can, I keep telling individual, years back, not even up to 8 or 10 years, I travel all the regions by road because my work actually, commit to that. I moved from Lagos to Benin, from Benin to the east to the north, and it's by road. I dare not try that now. Yep. And it's about the business. We are just trying to, people can move. If I enjoy traveling by night because the weather will be very cool. But these days, because of insecurity, because of bad road, you dare not try it. So a lot of people who have the creativity are actually just withdrawing back to their shell and not growing the economy. And that's why we've said, if you are actually putting the subsidy, saying that it has gone, invest some of those things on infrastructure that will impact on the common man. As we have it now, there is nothing this administration is doing that is impacting on the common man. Rather, it's actually impoverishing them. I remember 2 years ago when I was predicting that December 2022, dollar will hit 1,000. People were like, what are we doing? And the same thing will stay happening. We are not producing anything. Rather, even some of the production we've been doing before this administration came on board, a lot of it we have stopped, producing. So we now rely more on imported goods. Everything you need to talk about. It's quite shocking when you hear that people are importing bread, people are importing soup, people are importing things that you can do locally. Gari that you go to Ibadan, and yellow gari from the east. People are now importing it. They are sending out our cassava, if at all we have any, out of it. That's part of the illegal diversion that you are talking about. Taking it out to other countries, processing it, and bringing back to us the finished product. And you want the economy to grow. How do you create employment with that? So if government is serious and intentional about it, we should start looking at ways to make sure that we can start producing things locally. All the things that we need to consume. And the only area that can be addressed is by speaking straight to security. And the second aspect, power, of which I can see that even our leaders are not leading by example, by not paying their bills as when they are supposed to pay it.
Yeah, it's embarrassing, actually. We might be wrapping up here. I don't know if we have any other newspapers to...
yeah, we have the Vanguard.
To take a look at. I think we could just rush through the Vanguard newspapers this morning. And like Mr. Kumada said, it's an ego thing, the reason behind the full subsidy removal. But of course, on the Vanguard, it says, Sean Pride review subsidy removal and flotation of the naira. It may have to take they're advising the government to, to reverse some of these policies because it doesn't seem to be working. Economic hardship saboteurs working against us, says Shatima. Still nobody sharing these brilliant ideas that they came into government with. Just continuing to blame saboteurs, blame disgruntled elements, and blame whoever else.
And in the same speech, tell us not to politicize it, but they're actually politicizing the hardship the Nigerians are facing.
Also on the Vanguard this morning, ASU rejects new IPPIS, insists on FEC's directive on removal of varsities. Tinubu directs payment of State House electricity debt. Edo 2024, APC SWC divided over Idahosa, Okwebulo, and also federal government targets $10 billion to increase foreign exchange liquidity and stabilize the naira. Insecurity bill to stabilize state police scale second reading in House of Reps. Labour Party crisis, state chairman deny plot to suspend Obi, back Julius Abure. Quickly, your thoughts on state police?
Yeah, I think the federal government is now listening to us. Some of us had advocated for it. If you go to developed country, there are categories of this policing. You even have the local one that will take care of your community. So if the state policing is able to scale through and start much measures are actually put as control mechanism so that the state will not be over power to now just appoint someone that will hunt or torment other people. I think
so the recruitment process, also needs to be checked.
Of course, they're already talking about the Police Service Commission working in line with the state governors in appointment of some of these stuff, so that it won't be an issue of it's my townsman, it needs to come in. It's a city based on merit. When you look at it, and it's the Police Service Commission that have it, but this is something we've actually been clamoring for so that we can hold the state governors accountable, being the chief security officer of the state. And don't forget, we have security votes that go into their hands. Maybe some of these things can actually now be used, knowing fully well that you have the security architecture in your hand. And we have different approach. Different states, not what is happening in Kaduna is what we are facing in Lagos or what is happening in Ekiti. So you have different governors sitting down with his own team on how to address state. And once you have security, prosperity, it will now become a competition. When my state is secure and I'm prospering, then people in your state will ask questions, what are we doing? Because a secured environment is a prosperous environment.
Olusegun Okunade, thank you very much for joining us and sharing your thoughts on some of these big stories.
Thank you very much, Olive and Osos, for having me. The best of the day.
All right. And as we concluded this newspaper review, we had our analysts talk about state police. A bill seeking to amend Nigeria's constitution to legitimize the establishment of state police in the country has passed a second reading in the House of Representatives. The bill, which was sponsored by the Deputy Speaker of the House, Benjamin Kalu, and 14 members of Parliament, is expected to empower state governments to establish their own dedicated police agencies in order to tackle the escalating insecurity crisis in the country. News Central's Edo Joseph monitored proceedings on the floor of the House, and he tells us more.
The call for state police seems to have gained attention in recent times, not only among lawmakers, but it seems the executive is also buying into the idea.
To provide for the establishment of state police.
Leading the debate for the bill which seeks to alter the nation's constitution and make provisions for the establishment of state police in the country. Lawmakers say the bill will empower states to establish state police so as to be able to tackle the insecurity challenges in their states.
We have the likes of Amotekun, we have Neighborhood Watch, we have Ebubeagu in the southeast. What we're trying to do and what this bill seeks to do is to streamline those activities.
The bill comprises of 18 clauses that seeks to alter Section 34, 35, 39, 42, 84, 89, and 129 among other sections of the 1999 Constitution of Nigeria. The proposal for the establishment of state police was supported by many lawmakers, as they said this will help address the current insecurity challenges being witnessed. However, there are some who expressed concern, especially in the ability of state governments to fund the venture in the light of current economic challenges.
It gives impetus to the communities. You are so conscious that you have security. What we are talking about now is the legal support.
May be different from what is happening in Abia, may be different from what is happening in Kano, and the way to control it also will be different. So I believe we are in need of their need.
Many states are insolvent, unable to pay their salaries and other obligations. State police is not the right way to go.
Can the members of other political parties have justice in Edo? The answer is no. So while I'm supporting this bill, I want us to look inward.
It will be recalled that the bill calling for the amendment of the Constitution to legalize state police in the country has been rejected by previous administrations. While there have been fears that they will be used by political class to oppress political opponents, lawmakers are saying that with less than 400,000 police officers in the employment of the federal government, providing security for over 200 million citizens is a tall order. In Abuja for News Central, I am Edo Joseph.
Now joining us to discuss this bill further is parliamentary analyst Fred Itwa. Good morning and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, good morning. Glad to be here.
All right. Many Nigerians seem to be very excited about these developments because these are conversations that have been called for many years. I think from the 7th Assembly, there had been some pushbacks against it, but now it seems like we're making headway. Is this something that you are also excited about?
I'm excited, but I have to kind of delay my excitement.
Why?
Until it passes through the rigorous hurdles in the Parliament. This is just the first step. There will be more steps to go through, which is the Senate. Then after that, there will be a proper public hearing, community engagement to make contributions, eventually to pass the third reading. And that's where the problem is, the first leg of the problem. To pass any constitutional amendment bill, you have to have 240 members of the House of Reps, then 74 senators that must be present and voting before the bill can be transmitted to another phase, and that's the most difficult phase. It means 24 state houses of assembly needs to endorse this bill for it to skate through. Now, if it's an agenda pushed by the South, for instance, it will run into trouble, like some people are predicting. I'll try and explain that. The entire South has 17 states, and you need 24 states to get this passed. So If, for instance, some northern states are not in support of it, let's just say northeast and northwest, those two areas combined is enough to derail the passage of this bill. Then after that, we can probably have a conversation on whether or not the president will sign it into law. And what we also know is that sometimes what is proposed is not what is passed eventually. So as much as we want to be excited, we should delay our expectations until these processes are completed. Then we can probably sigh some relief, hoping that we skate through that. We can talk about the modalities and other expectations that will follow.
So it's not Uhuru, sorry, it's not Uhuru yet. So this is not something to be excited about yet because it will take a long time. But what we need now is something very immediate to fix the current insecurity crisis. So is it that Nigerians are just going to be stranded at this point and going to wait till forever?
It will take at least a year for us to get this process done. And the argument too about some concerns need to be addressed. One of such is the abuse of power by state governors who would likely rely on the instrumentality of state police to harass their opponents. Some cited the case of Edo where you have election coming up. Another state of the federation where already state governments have a way of influencing federal security structure to do their bidding. So their fear is, if this is going to work, how do we handle that? And some have argued that one of the requirements or conditions should be the abolishment of immunity clause for state governors and the president. And that whenever they abuse their powers, they can face criminal charges. Whether or not that will come up is a different ballgame. They also have the challenge of funding. Some are worried with state governments unable to pay basic salaries as low as 30,000 naira minimum wage. What's the assurance that if they hire, for instance, about 50,000 policemen, that they'll be able to handle the payments of those recruits? The other challenge is, as much as it's still a state police, from what aspect of the bill I've read, to still have some federal interference, that the Police Service Commission, that would kind of interfere in the appointments and confirmation of the commissioners, who in this case would be, of course, recommended by the governors. And some also argue that some governors may make it a personal affair. And that fear is well-founded if you also look at the federal structure of our policing system, where beside probably President Jonathan and Obasanjo, every other president we've had since then, they've always appointed people from their part of the country to head the federal police. So if these fears are not addressed, I doubt if this whole thing will work. That's just the fears some persons are expressing. And the House of Reps, ditto the Senate, need to address these concerns. Otherwise, House of Assembly will frustrate it, just like they have done in the past.
From what you're saying, I think we probably should just ignore it because it's almost never going to happen.
It's
loopholes,
possible.
Yeah, it's possible, but these loopholes are just too many, and of course they're very, very sensitive. Every single one that you mentioned is very, very sensitive, and we know how these things play out, with these conversations. One group, just would never, allow this to happen, for the other group, and eventually, we spend. Look at the Electoral Act Amendment Bill and the 977,000 years it took before it was eventually passed. So that's what it almost already sounds like. But I want you to address, what needs to change for us to not have the fears of, for example, governors misusing, state police, the fear of the state police now becoming a tool for politicians, to use, of course, for their own political gains. What parts need to change? Do we need some level of improvement with, our systems and then the strength of our institutions for these things to happen?
No, the only way that can probably work, first one would be the power to appoint commissioners. As much as they want to leave that with the governor, there should be some form of interference from the Police Service Commission, just like you have the NJC that would confirm appointments of even state judges recommended by the governor. We can do the same. If there are thorough background checks on the candidate for the position and they feel it is not suitable to host such, then they can decide or decline not to confirm such. And the other aspect which I talked about in passing was the issue of immunity clause. Governors are very powerful. It means by law, no matter the crime they commit, if a governor decides to line up 100 persons and kill them, by law, you cannot prosecute that governor unless he's impeached, which means if there's a state police and a governor abuses the privilege, by law, you cannot prosecute that governor. Now, if you address that immunity clause, maybe not entirely abolish it, still protect the governor from civil offenses, but remove that criminal element of it for them to be able to face prosecution whenever they are involved in criminal activities, that will probably allay the fears of people.
But wouldn't the argument about how that might lead to frivolous court cases and then delay actual governance, wouldn't that be, because that's usually
if it's civil, I said civil, there will still be protected from civil cases. Okay. That's what would derail all of that. But if it's criminal, you have to commit a criminal offense for them to take it to court. And the only way you can do that is to use the instrumentality of state to abuse power. Yeah. So if the governor, for instance, is put within check, that can be addressed. But if it's not, rest assured that they will abuse that privilege. It is a work in progress. I'm hoping that as the conversations evolve, that this argument should be well established and addressed.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about individual states and being able to handle these responsibilities. They struggled with 30,000 minimum wage, like you mentioned. Can they employ 50,000 people? If they don't need 50,000, maybe they only need 10,000. I mean, states will be able to decide how many of these placements that they need. But will funding be an issue? And what the recruitment process also would be like? Is that also some of the things that would be issues with these persons? There's people who have mentioned that civilian JTF, Amotekun, Ebubayagu, Hisba, all these things are, almost, the same thing with the idea of state police. And so will funding be a problem? And what level of funding, would they even need? It's not just giving them pump action rifles. There's a lot more.
I don't think funding will be a problem if that's the main issue. First, a state like Edo, where I'm from, a governor collects almost $1 billion per month under the guise of security votes. Yeah. Yes. So some states collect over $1 billion, all those oil-rich states. So imagine you just add a little to that, it can address some problems. Then another way to fund it, which is already happening, is through police trust fund. Again, if you go to my state, my senatorial district, for instance, they have vigilante groups where you have almost about 2,000 or 3,000 of them. And the money that was spent in establishing that was contributed by the people through a trust fund. They raised almost about 300 million naira, which was used in getting vehicles and other gadgets for them. And since then, there has been relative peace in that area. So if you have a trust fund for the police and the people are sure that it will be well utilized, people will contribute. Even the corporate world will do that. The private sector will do that. Even a civil servant who earns 5,000 naira can decide to pitch just 1,000 naira if he's sure that that money will help in securing his environment. So trust fund will work. Then security vote, which governors spend without any accountability, if they just add a little to that, they're able to fund state police. Of course, they will add them into the existing payment structure in their various states. So the burden wouldn't be that much. About equipment and all of that, from time to time, the federal government will have to intervene, like they have done in the case of education, healthcare, through NHI and all of that, education through UBEC, TED Fund, and the rest of them. So if there are these kind of interventions from the federal government, trust fund to be contributed by the people, and good use of security votes, there will not be a problem at all. An average state will go to employ at least 50,000 recruit or police officers.
I mean, you would assume so. It may also be a way to also mop up a lot of the unemployed young men and women that we see on the streets, yes, which is getting embarrassing at this point, and scary also. But the fear that I also have with that is, and we're having this conversation not because we've already established that the possibility of this happening is pretty slim. But I also have the fear that what you're going to do is now just drag in every Tom, Dick, and Harry and put them in the force, regardless of how educated they are, regardless of their past criminal life, criminal history.
Records, yeah.
Everybody just come and fill up the police force, and then it's going to be harder to control, because now you have criminals, you have the uneducated, you have everybody now wearing the badge of a Nigerian police officer, and we already know how that turns out. Even for those in the current, police force, who are high-handed and, disrespectful of Nigeria's laws and Nigerian citizens. So it's a fear or one of the fears that I have.
In its formative years, those expectations will happen. There will be abuse, there will be challenges, there will be hiccups. They will recruit the wrong people, even criminals will be recruited. But over time, if they are serious, some of these things will be addressed. If you're a criminal, no matter where you are placed, it's just a matter of time you exhibit those tendencies. So those things will happen, but we can't ignore the bigger picture because of those minimal challenges that will definitely arise. It's something we should still push through. But my bigger fear is not even what will happen after, is how we'll get it passed and signed into law.
Well,
That's the
fingers
biggest
crossed.
challenge.
We're just going to keep hoping that this time around we've had enough to ensure that we get the desired change regarding the current policing that we have in Nigeria. And if and when we're able to, pass this bill, we'll have you come again so we can analyze the details of what this bill has. Thank you so much, Fred. It was always a pleasure.
Thank you very much
to
for
have
having me.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. We've come to the end of the show today. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember that you can continue the conversation on our social media at News Central TV on all platforms. It is our hope, it is my hope, it is our hope that when we come back tomorrow, we will not be reading the papers saying that $1 is equivalent to 2,000 naira. It's currently 1,900. I hope you for better times, better news tomorrow and beyond. I am Olive Emodi. We'll see you tomorrow.
And I am the more realistic one, saying that it's very possible that it will be 2,000 or even more by
Please,
tomorrow.
hope is all that I have to hold on to at this point.
Good luck
Since
with that.
strategy hasn't been working.
Good luck with that. Take that hope to your local airline.
Good luck with what?
And I say good luck with that.
Well,
Go to the airport and tell them I have hope that this flight is going to cost me 50,000 for a return ticket.
say good luck to that. When you said good luck, I remember Jonathan. I imagine what he must be thinking about now when he's looking at Nigeria's economy.
He'll be fine.
And how, anyway, let's not go
He'll
into
be fine.
that.
We need to go. We're going to be back here again tomorrow morning. I am Osaogi Ogbawan.
Have a good day.